All right. Let's hear it for our next group, our marketing and strategy panel with the best vendors and coaches in our industry. Harish Tejwani, Nathan Knottingham, Jason Frazier, Mo Hernandez, and your moderator, Chris Gordon.
All right. How's everyone doing? Learning lots? Having fun? Good? So before we get started, I'll let you in on a couple of secrets, two specifically. One, do you guys know Greg Gutfeld? The show Greg Gutfeld? Yeah. All right. So little known secret of mine is I want that job. So as soon as Jenna told me, I was like, yes. But then 3.5 seconds later, I was like, I'm normally behind the scenes. So I'm not sure how this is going to work out. But nonetheless, we've got a great group of people here, and we're going to try to focus on marketing, strategy, and tying it all together. So to start, a question I get sometimes is, Chris, why the hell are you the chief strategy officer? What's strategy? And my initial response is, well, chief golfing officer is already taken. So no, but strategy is a funny thing. It's all-encompassing. So I think to start, we'll go through some introductions, but then add on, what does strategy mean to you and your business?
So I'll start. Good afternoon, everyone. First of all, thank you, EPM, for having us. My name is Harish Tejwani. I'm the CEO of Arrive. I have a little bit unique perspective when it comes to strategy. Like, I'm a first-generation immigrant. I came here in 2007. Everybody remembers 2007, what happened? So I started 2 companies.
So you're the reason?
Yeah, so this is my 3rd company, Arrive. So I did 2 startups before that. They were learning experiences. So in my 3rd company, I kind of took all the learnings of my first 2, if you will, failures and applied as I built my strategy. So what I learned is having a strong mission statement backed by a strong set of core values will align your execution. So that's kind of how I think about strategy. Like, is my team clear what we are supposed to do this year, next year, 3 year, 5 year? Where will we be? Where the market will be? Where the product will be? Where our customers will be? Where the community will be? So that's what I think about strategy.
Nathan Nottingham, vetted VA, COO with Christopher Griffith. It's my partner there, and then also chief of staff with Be My Neighbor Mortgage. And so strategy for me, everybody remember Lego? The Lego was brilliant because the Lego came out with directions that you could listen to or watch and follow along with, or you could, mess it up, and you'd have to go backwards. So strategy for me, you take a vision, you kind of know what your end goal is going to be, and then you build the Lego storyboards that get you there. And sometimes you have to be flexible and you change the block colors, and sometimes you've got to go back and rework something because you missed that one little piece that makes everything out of balance. So strategy is about vision to execution and what the end result looks like, but then being flexible enough to understand that end result can change.
Oh, that's good. That was good. I'm Jason Frazier. I'm the Chief Growth Officer for 2020 Vision for Success Coaching. I'm also an executive coach. Represent. And then also the founder of Broker CMO. And being a former Chief Strategy Officer both for EPM and for my own mortgage company. You look at strategy different ways. I look at it differently from a marketing perspective. I look at it different from a competitive perspective. And what Nathan said is vision to execution. I couldn't put it any better than that. But when you look at it strategically, it's about foresight, right? And it's about being moves ahead, especially if you're thinking about from a competitive standpoint, thinking about and I think it was Phil that said it is going to where the puck is going, right? That strategy to me is that you got to have foresight because you want to be there before, whether it's a competitive, a trend in marketing or whatnot, you want to be there before because being a first mover in this market absolutely makes a difference.
You bring up a good point, and I think to highlight it, as entrepreneurs, sometimes we can get stuck working in the business and forget about working on the business, and looking ahead is that working on the business.
Amorette Hernandez, Mo the Mortgage Lady. I'm the growth architect for CMS Mortgage. I'm also a originator, so definitely boots on the ground, as well as coaching our fellow teammates inside of the CMS ecosystem. Strategy to me means opportunity, honestly. Strategy means having the vision, but also having an opportunity to collaborate and build the right experience for your referral partners, for your clients, for the team as a whole, and just really understanding that everybody has a role and how to maximize their skill set, their passion, to make that ultimate end goal be exactly what you dreamed it to be. That's strategy to me.
Awesome. So kind of wrapping it all together, we talked about people, we talked about execution, vision, strategy, and to me, strategy is executing the vision through people, process, and culture. So to kind of dissect that, people, what does that mean? What are your people like? And you know, last night, a little bit today, you kind of start observing things. And when I look at different groups of people or different companies, I'm like, what things stand out? How do I know where they are? And one of those things, you know, what I've been picking up on is everyone's a little different. They've got their own thing. You know, for example, it's like, how do you know someone works at Nexa? It says Nexa. But also, they've got this funny thing that I don't know what it is if they figure out how to clone people, but like they've like cloned Brian Shields because some of the guys, they're like, you know, bald head, tall, look like they could lift up a car with one hand. I'm like, how is he doing that? That's amazing. And then, you know, you've got C2 and Temco, and they've got a little swag in their step, and I'm like, that's it. That's the culture. That's the people. And everyone's kind of got their own flavor of what people are like. So, and it's different from organization to organization, team to team. So what are some of the things that you guys look for in your people? What are the standards, the non-negotiables?
So maybe I'll start. So, you know, people are our biggest asset. Like you said, you know, that's what defines whether your company is successful or not successful. Everything comes after the fact. That's how we see this, whether you're building a product or providing a service. It's the people that you hired who work with you. They will decide where your company goes. So as I mentioned, you know, I've defined a set of core values, 6 core values. They define everything. When we are hiring people, we look for those attributes. Like, are they bold? Are they scrappy? Can they make things happen? You know, are they honest? What kind of projects they have worked on? What kind of impact they have had? So I think as for my business, you know, we try to hire people who are a good culture match. You know, we can train people on anything, but we cannot train people on culture. So trying to identify whether someone will be a good fit and can grow in the organization, that's what we look for.
I'm going to talk to myself real quick, so you all are welcome to listen to me. People, as a kid, I always wanted to be picked for the kickball team, right? But I was the big, not athletic kid, so I was always the last picked. I got it. I get it now that I'm older. When it comes to people, you have to understand who you're dealing with and look past what their resume says, right? People, like if I have a vision, because it's on the front of the Lego box, and I've got the pieces because they're all in a package, I got to figure out like who actually has the ability to put this together the way that we need to move forward. The coolest thing that I learned when I worked, many of you may not know this, 6 years for Starbucks, worked my way up out of college to management, and I learned so much from the methodology there was Howard Schultz wrote a book, Pour Your Heart Into It, and he said, I had a vision for the coffee shop because I went to Italy. I had no idea how to do books, no idea how to procure coffee beans, no idea how to, and he hired the people who were better at him than those things. Strategy, marketing is all about finding the people that can do it better and then listening to them because they can probably even tell you what you didn't even realize, even though you've got the vision. You know where it's going. And a strategy for me, I'm a COO, I'm a second. I learned to embrace that because I rarely have the vision. Chris comes in wild-haired, like red lines everywhere. I want to do this. And I sit there, I'm like, okay, I see it. Now let me go build the plan and we'll execute on this one. So having that strategy, finding the people, and then in the people, empowering them to understand who they are. Who are they? And what power do they bring to this plan? And then getting out of the way and letting them run with it.
Yep. I think you nailed it on the leadership quality there. Fill the room with people who are smarter than you are and exploit their disciplines to make the overall team better.
Yeah, and I'll take it a little step further. Is when I'm looking at someone that I want to hire or someone that I want on my team, is I look for a brain at work, right? I look for a mind at work, and more importantly, are they thinking different? And because I don't, obviously, those that know me, I'm all about being different and going against the status quo, and so I look for a mind at work first, but more importantly, I want smart people that disagree with me, because ultimately, as a leader or someone that's running a team, is it, we've obviously the theme here is about teamwork and partnership. Is you don't do it by yourself, and this industry is exactly what we're talking about, right? You can't just do everything by yourself. Everything is working together as Legos and puzzles, and you want to have people that are going to disagree with you, because when you know that their mind is right, when you know that they have a good work ethic, when you know that they are thinking differently, it forces you to have a different lens and a different perspective, and that's when the real magic happens. That's when creativity happens, because just having one vision and one voice is never going to create greatness.
I agree 100%, and I think for us, when we're choosing, or I should say maybe when we're inviting people to the table and then have them choose us, I think it's also important to understand how they are extraordinary, because there are definitely a lot of different facets that create the mortgage process, from the people who are in the streets, on stage, behind the scenes. And I truly feel that having the capability of bringing different people to the table, but also having them be ego-less. Corina and I just finished reading a book earlier this year called Unreasonable Hospitality. Yep. I know it's a favorite amongst many of us. But honestly, just really understanding that going that extra mile and doing extraordinary things and being unreasonable with yourself, where you're willing to do, and you're willing to have hard conversations, and you're willing to be honest, and you're willing to be authentic, because a lot of times that resume looks real good, but they're not willing to do. So for us, having people who are willing to be honest and try new things and try new ways, and because you have to be revolutionary every single day, honestly.
Yeah, I add one. The other part of that, to that, the unreasonableness, you find somebody, you thought it was good, you plug them into the plan, they're the wrong color block. Man, they do not have enough dots. Do not be afraid to go back and tear apart what you just did, remove them from the equation with all love, like, hey, I see in you these great powers, it's not a great fit for us, we're gonna let you go, move on, let's rebuild. And sometimes you have to do that, and that's part of a strong strategy plan.
Can you think of a time where it's worked out? Like, what are, you mentioned a few qualities that you look for in an individual. What's an example of like that coming alive within your business, a problem being solved or a new solution, idea? Anyone?
Yeah. Oh, do you want to go first? I don't want to keep. Okay. Well, I can think of one that didn't work, and I thought it would, and they were challenging everything in the worst way possible. It was so terrible the way they would challenge every idea. It was not professional or even respectful. It was just challenge. And so at some point, it's like, look, I appreciate that. What are you going to do about it? Well, they didn't want to take any responsibility for it. So, okay, we removed that. But I think on the other side, hey, this is how we're doing it. And I think Brandy Alonji with Veta VA, a lot of people know her. She left active service. She was looking for a job. I brought her in as an admin support. She asks questions on everything. In fact, sometimes I hate about to roll something out because of all the questions she's about to ask me. But I will tell you this, she makes us so much better that now, even before I get down the line on trying to think out a plan, I just go to her. Like, let's brainstorm. Ask me every question under the sun, pre-mortem this, because if it dies, how did it die? Every which way. Dumb ways to die. She will figure them all out. And so I love that about her, and I embrace that now, every which way.
It's so true. I think of Jason, Linda, Ashley, like when the team sits down, I've almost got to preface the meeting. Like, we're always going to ask you why, because we're not in the job. And a lot of things get stuck in your head, and it's tribal knowledge. And, oh, we've been doing it that way for 10, 12, 15 years. And no one really knows why. So it's like, yeah, I'm asking you why 10 times over, but eventually through that brain damage, you get the why, and then you can solve for the root cause.
So I'll add another interesting aspect. So for my business, like we have grown to more than 140 employees in short 3 years. And getting into Arrive is more difficult than getting into an Ivy League. That's how we joke about this. So what I've done in my company is we have set up these assessments. That's a big challenge. When we are trying to hire, you get all these resumes, they say all these good things. So how do you really find the culture fit and someone you believe will be a match? You're still making a decision, but so what we have done is we have built these assessments based on the role we are hiring, and every candidate goes through that assessment. It is tougher than an SAT exam. I joke about that. But what happens is, for example, we are hiring salespeople. We give them mathematical questions. It's not we are looking for their cognitive skills, but what we are trying to see is, can they take curveballs? Can they answer a question which is not, because that's what happens in real life. You'll be hit with things you're not used to. You'll be hit with something which you're not expecting. So that's kind of the strategy that we have deployed very successfully. We have recruiters full-time now. So I think for us, trying to figure out, okay, I have to grow to 100 people, 200 people, 500 people in next year or two. So how can we find right match? Good talent is still high in demand. Like Mo mentioned, you are not really choosing good people. They're really choosing you. So for us, it becomes, how do we create that kind of experience starting day zero, where someone really believes this is the right company to work with for a long, long time?
Yeah, I think you're starting to talk about standards, right? So you can have great people, but that could be very subjective. And as you scale, you're going from 100 to 200 employees, you've got to think through, what are the standards that I'm going to put in place for my people to ensure that when we go from 100 to 500, everything stays the same, the quality stays the same, it continues to improve. So maybe Jason or Mo, what are some of the standards that you have in place to ensure the quality doesn't get removed or it doesn't affect the culture?
So for us, I think what's really important is for us to understand, when loan officers choose CMS to be part of our ecosystem, we have to have the capacity to support the loan officer that's doing 1 loan a month, and the capacity to support the loan officers who are doing 100 loans a month. So internally, the process and flow has to be the same, even though their flavor is different. I relate everything to either food or sports. So, it's like baking a cake. The foundation of the cake is the same. You get to choose, are you making strawberry? Is it gluten-free? Is it nut-free? All these things. But for us, having that efficiency and consistency to be able to deliver, Corina always talks about a relay race. So, our originators are out in the streets. They're bringing it in. I like to call it hunting and fishing. They're the hunters and the gatherers, and we're the slicers and the dicers. And we're, in the ops side, we're creating that harvest. We're nurturing. So for us, honestly, having the originators have their flavor, have their branding, have all the things that make them, that people are choosing the originator, but then having the process and flows within our ecosystem makes that client journey just so extraordinary, repeatable, and setting the expectations so that the referrals just come in, because they know if it's Mo the mortgage lady, they know what they're going to get.
Yeah, go ahead.
No, I was just going to, it's just real simple, because we were talking about people.
Yeah.
Is this one thing that I learned from Phil is you got to take 100% responsibility. It's your fault, right? So either you hired the wrong person or you put them in the wrong seat, right? A lot of times you want to say, and really just have the mentality is there's not a bad employee. Either you hired wrong or you put them in the wrong place. So you got to take that accountability, you got to take that responsibility. And when you're talking about setting those systems and processes, but it's not enough to set the standard, you got to live the standard and set that expectations. Like working with Christine and myself is tough, right? Because we are flying and doing a lot of ideas, texting, messaging, email, and a lot of stuff going all over the place. So it's a fast-paced environment. So you got to set those expectations. And that's the one thing I don't see a lot is someone that's kind of a sink or swim, no real direction, and then hopefully they live up to it or not. But then you kind of put it on the person. And again, you got to take that as a leader and as a manager, you got to take that responsibility. So again, either you hired wrong or you put them in the wrong seat. And then what right seat can you find them? And some of the greatest, successes that I've seen is by having someone that literally was like they're about to get fired, And then when you take that upon yourself and like, what is the right seat for that person? Can I be wrong as a leader that I hired wrong? Or did I put them in the wrong seat, but then putting them in the right seat and seeing them flourish and really, really make not just an impact within their own life, but for the company as well.
Agree, and I think we're kind of naturally following the path of conversation, right? People, process, culture. Mo started mentioning the process part, which to me, like I geek out on Visio flows and process charts. It's like, to me, that's the foundation, right? Everything that happens in your business, whether it's how you onboard an employee, offboard an employee, your loan production line, the life of the loan, that, you know, we talk about standards for people, but getting that on paper allows you to create the job descriptions, create the right comp plans that are based on the right high value activities, allows you to identify the handoff points like you said. And I think that sometimes if you get real busy, those things start to get overlooked and it causes confusion and ambiguity and, you know, who's wearing what hat. So when it comes to your role, when it comes to your business, what are some of the processes you have in place? What are some of the tools or methodologies you have in place to really like exemplify and ensure that your standards are being met through the process?
Okay, Mo, you first.
Okay, thanks. I think that honestly, when we're talking about the mortgage broker table and then the wholesale table, they can mirror each other. You know, we can talk about EPM having the disclosure desk, the processing, the underwriting desk. I think mortgage brokers can do that themselves, which is what we have. That's what our ecosystem looks like. We have a disclosures desk. We have, you know, the pre-underwriting. We have that handoff. So it's pre-underwriting, disclosures, submissions, et cetera, because at the end of the day, everybody has a role. Everybody understands what their role is, so that because at the very front of it, it's the originator. The originator is worried because the originator is used to potentially self-processing, self-generating. So you put them into an ecosystem and they're like, hold on, now I'm working with 10 different people, or now I'm working with 2 different people, whatever the case may be. But honestly, having that process to live up to its expectations and have it clearly structured. This is what happens at the disclosures desk. This is what happens in pre-underwriting, so that everybody can feel connected, heard, and supported, but have the opportunity to engage and still not feel like their autonomy, which makes them mortgage brokers, that spirit is not lost. That determination to finish is still on fire. So for us, having everything completely broken down to the T is 100% the reason why we are as successful as we are.
I want to talk to the small broker shops in here. So sorry, Nexa, plug your ears. I'm just kidding. You can totally listen to. All right. Small broker shops, let me see your hands. How many of you are like sub 20 people, right? And you're thinking, how many of those hands are hoping to grow bigger? That's your plan. Okay, cool. My hand's down, by the way. I don't want to grow bigger. I want to tell you this. It is okay to practice before you make it permanent. Okay, so your process must be practiced time and again, and then you have to go back. Stop hiring the person to solve the problem. Solve the problem with the process. Hire a contractor. Hire a sub. Call Dempsey. I don't know where she's at. Oh, she's back there. Okay. You know, call her with because you want to do your own processing in-house. Get a contractor and then figure out where the holes are, and then say, gosh, now we've executed, now I've worked it out in a way that is not going to either hurt your reputation locally because you're hired and fired, but it's going to help you identify with somebody who's a professional in that area how to get better. And then you're going to implement a process, have everything in play, and then hire that person, because now you know what you're hiring for. You've identified how many dots on that brick and what color does it need to be to fit your plan perfectly.
Absolutely. And I think you really got to dive into leveraging your network, right? Mortgages have been around for a long time. Maybe from like 2010 to 2016, there was like a giant arms race in who can have the best technology. But now there's so much technology out there that you can buy off the shelf, or to talk to people that already use that. And like, to your point, you don't have to make the perfect decision. Practice it first. See what one works for you, or see what the right position is. Is there maybe a time where you're wearing 17 different hats and you had that one person that came on your team and changed it and really helped evaluate the whole process or change the process?
Yeah, so I think going back to your original comment, I did want to add one point which is helping my company a lot. So one of the things instead of
I
doing...
feel like you like Visio charts too, process flows.
So we build all those charts, honestly. So we are a software company. We build software for brokers and our lender partners. So it's pretty standard. You have marketing, sales, product, engineering. So the org chart is pretty kind of run-of-the-mill. We are based in Bay Area, which is the tech hub. So one thing which we are doing different, which we think is having an impact, is instead of defining job descriptions, we are trying to create impact descriptions. So what I mean by that is if we hire you for a specific role within the organization, what kind of impact you will have when you come in. We hire you in customer service. So does that mean the response time to our clients, mortgage brokers, goes down? If we hire you in marketing, do we have really compelling campaigns which are looked by a wide audience? So coming up with this impact statements and making your employees realize that if I do this, it will really have an impact on the business. That has been very, very motivating. I think job descriptions have been around for a long time, but kind of trying to tell your people, like, you know what, your actions have big impact on my business. You're a big part of this. That really motivates employees. So did I answer your question? I'm not sure.
Yeah. Jason, you probably got the heaviest technical marketing background on the panel. If you could pick one thing to share for brokers to focus on, what would that be?
I would say one is most, and I think I'll get some agreement, and those that coach with me know, I'm going to say, is that you massively overcomplicate things. Massively like the CRM guys, come on, right? Massively overcomplicate the CRM. When it comes down to it, and I was just, because you said something earlier and I was going to mention this, is that technology really isn't the answer when we don't have the manufacturing process down first. And the reason I say that in my proof that I'm right is the fact that it is more expensive to manufacture a loan today than it was a decade ago. And I think we've seen that we have all the technology in the last decade, so why is it more expensive to manufacture a loan today than it was back then? Right? For those of you that have been in the business for a long time, I know I've only been since 2009, but my joke is since I was born into it, I've been in it for 47 years. But is the loan process different? Has it changed, really? New products, programs, technology, but getting a mortgage hasn't really changed that much. Yet we've thrown billions of dollars of technology at it. Ultimately, we have to decide, are you going to sit down and change the way that you look at your process and actually create a process and a plan? I would argue that I talk to more loan officers every single day than anyone else, just as a coach and a trainer and just what I do online. And every single, almost, I won't say every single, but 90% of the conversations when I talk about, and this goes into strategy and planning and process, do you have a documented process of how you lead to close? Most do not, right? And raise your hand. Do you have a documented process of the complete life of the loan from cradle to grave in your business? Raise your hand if you do. Well, okay. Well,
That's
thank
awesome.
you. Thank you for the shout out.
Yeah.
But ultimately, not, what was that, 5 people raised their hand in this entire room? And no judgment, right? You're human. This is what everyone, not in just our vertical, but most. How can you fit technology and strategy into something if you don't have the process? It can't live up here. We know how that goes, right? This is just part of the reactive nature of this industry. If we really want technology, if we really want to reduce costs, if we really want to execute and convert at the highest level possible, you got to have your systems and processes dialed in from cradle to grave. A lot with what Mo said is like, hey, every single person knows what's happening so that literally I should be able to grab someone off the street, sit them in a seat, and just basically go off of a documented checklist of left to right. But we just don't do that. And ultimately, and that's why we have a fragmented system, because you all know if I go to your company and ask you what an LOA does, I'm going to get 15 different answers. What does your processor do? 15 different. What is your loan part? 15 different answers. And so ultimately, you have to set your standard, and then you got to live your standard, not just in culture and values, but you got to do it in your process of how you're bringing a loan in and then how you're closing it.
I want to add something to that because you just said about how much more expensive it is to manufacture a mortgage. But I also want to say that automation can be personalized. So whatever system you're using, we love Arrive. But whatever system you're using, find ways to personalize your automation. I like saying things like yeehaw. So a lot of my automation says yeehaw. My customers don't know that it's not me because I have dialed it in. And I honestly challenge everybody in the room to really understand what you want your customers to experience when they work with you from cradle to grave, and your teammates, so that you can have that process and flow. They can experience the culture of what it is to, to work with you. They can experience who you are as a human, even though you are relying on a robot automation to help you.
Yeah, and look, until it's live, it's an untrusted source, so it's a little bit scary. But you bring up a good point, because the way I look at technology is, and there's a lot of talk around AI now and how that can help, and we shouldn't really look at it as a threat. It's not job replacement. It is a way for you to spend more time on the human aspects of your business, so that you're not doing remedial tasks, or if there's something that can be automated through a process that you don't have to be involved in, you can double down on customer service or getting out there to events and speaking with your clients. I think that is the mindset that we have to adopt. It's not to replace a job, it's to allow a person in that job to do more of the people things. Cool. Moving on to culture, and I think that people and process are going to be different depending on where you are and what it's like. You could, maybe for you, since it's more building technology, it's a lot more structured, a lot more task-oriented, and when you're out in sales, maybe less so. I think of a story about Frank Ferrance. When we started rolling out business development, I was like, hey, I'm going to implement a CRM. He was like, what? No. But now, even as of 2 weeks ago, we've got him up on Go High Level, and he's got all his contacts in there. He makes his phone calls in there, his email in there. He's like, Chris, this is great. That was a terrible Frank impersonation, but close enough, right? So it's that initial fear of the unknown, right? But once you move past that and it becomes part of your process, your people love it, which impacts your culture. What are some of the things that exist in your business that really exemplify your culture?
So one of the things I always encourage, at least in Arrive, is do not be afraid to take risks. We do build software, we place bets. You said AI is coming. We have spent millions of dollars, prototyping technologies. How can we adopt them? Most of them end up failing. So we always encourage our employees, as long as there is some rationale. You cannot do in loan production, right? You don't want to take a risk and try unknown things. But in software development, we do encourage our team, don't follow a process. If you want to try something new, which is out there, give it a shot. Another thing which I've done, I've placed my employees, we have a rich community of a lot of brokers, right? So I tell my employees, go talk to these brokers. What are they doing in their business, and how can we help them be successful? That provides a lot of motivation to our employees. We have set up this Facebook group called Arrive Mortgage Brokers. Hopefully everybody is on that. A lot of communication, collaboration, and somebody posts a comment, then our team calls them, hey, I see you posted this comment. What are you guys thinking about? So that kind of process building, which is new in the tech world. I don't see a lot of tech companies so closely engaged with their customers. That has helped a lot. But yes, taking risk, trying out things, not being afraid to fail. Even if you fail, as long as you gave your best shot, those are some of the key things that we strive to achieve in our company.
Okay. So for us, culture obviously leads the way. Culture for us means willing to collaborate, willing to have hard conversations. And I think that that's something that having a hard conversation is hard, but having the ability to listen but also speak the truth helps get to that creative solution, to find the crossroads, to find where the break is, to understand what it is that's happening. So for us, culture just really means collaboration, openness, willingness to be wrong, but willingness to do it afraid and raise your hand and say, hey, what if this? But honestly, at the root of all of it, culture means family. We're all working together. We may have a difference of opinion. We may have different ways that we're looking at things, but at the root and the end goal is to create such a beautiful experience while we're building the communities around us. We have a big responsibility. And understanding that through the culture of what we have in our hands is a beautiful thing. And having the right people, having the right process that feed into that culture too, so that it then attracts others. Because this business can be hard. If it's hard, then choose to work with people who can do the hard things with you. That's culture.
Yeah, and it's been said a couple times, feedback. You said it. You even mentioned the way you get it is through your Facebook group or other things. Do you have things in place within your company that allow that feedback to happen? And what comes of it? Because I think that's a big part, right? Everybody loves to ask for feedback, but the important part is taking action from it.
Yeah, I'll start. So I think our customers get delighted. They give a feedback. Next day, you did this. so that kind of excitement motivates a lot of our team. In 1 day, 2 days, they're just sending us emails. So we have set up a big team internally. There's a lot that happens in our back office. There are 10 or 12 people. All they do is just try to look at which customers are giving which feedbacks. We have a system where we measure trends and what users are demanding. So again, kind of trying to build that environment where customers are heard and employees are empowered to make decisions based on what customers are saying makes a big difference.
I'm so self-conscious about touching my face right now. Like this mustache hair keeps bothering me, and I'm like, no, seriously, everybody, I'm okay. Thanks, Janine. And I thought all of y'all were bored, but I know you're just actively listening, so this is great. Look, culture is experience, not communicated in words, right? Culture is a show me, don't tell me. If you're trying to set your culture and you've got the nice words on the wall and you've got the rah-rahs on the cup and everybody's like, this is what our culture is, but you don't act out that belief, then you don't have culture. Well, actually you do. It's just not what you say it is. I'm watching Savannah Bananas right now for culture lessons 24/7. If you are not tracking Jesse, the Yellow Tux on Instagram, please do and listen. Look, I have ruined culture before. When I was working my way up in businesses, I would be brought in, and I've had experiences where I work 2 to 3 years in jobs, and I come in and I turn them around, and then I'm like, I don't know what to do with this place, because that's me. I'm a change agent. I need to do that. And I realized in one that I actually messed it up, because I left, and it did not succeed once I left. I screwed it up. I did not put culture ahead of what I thought needed to happen. We've made changes where culture was lost and had to be rebuilt. Culture is experience, like I said. Look, cult is in culture. We just need to understand that. People have to find that vision with you and accept it and make it personal. Otherwise, it's not going to exist in the next hard time. So find that for you. What is it? Learn to communicate it. Learn to live it. Unapologetically live it. And when somebody comes back and says, hey, you're not, I'm going to pick on EPM. You're not empowering me to do this more. Ooh, okay. What do you mean? Tell me more. What I hear you say is, and be open to that feedback and then say, yeah, you might be right. I didn't do that right. And sometimes you're not going to come to a great conclusion because the vision has to take you this way. And you can say, look, we're not going to be able to do it that way. And if that's not a good fit, I'm going to help celebrate you on your next steps the next way too.
Awesome. Jason, you've probably got a unique perspective because you get to work with lots of different organizations. How do you see this come up or be impacted?
Yeah, I mean, I obviously get a different lens because you see different types of culture. And Nathan's right on is that a lot of culture, especially, recently in our industry is really just words on paper, right? You have core values and yada, 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 and all that other stuff. Not to say they're not important if you live them, but like I said earlier, you're going to set the standard and you got to live that standard. How are you showing up? That's what matters. That's what people see. How do you show up? That's what they follow. They don't follow because you're good on social media or you talk a good game, because everyone could do that. But it's how are you really showing up? And then how are you showing up when no one's watching, right? And so really that's what culture is. And, when I look at it is, because from our standpoint, when we're dealing with certain clients, some are easier to deal with than others, but we have to know exactly how to deal with them and actually what actually is driving either their happiness, their excitement, their frustration, their stress. And that only comes from understanding. So when you're looking at culture, you're talking about just how humans are humans, right? And that's why my success as a marketer has really been focusing on behavioral economics, because that focuses on the psychology of why consumers do what they do, because that's what matters to me. It's also what matters to you. right? So you have to really, Nathan, I think, put it perfectly, is that how are you going to show up? The culture has to live through that, but you're not going to set a culture. The culture is what it is, and you just got to define it, set that standard so everyone knows, and you got to be real with people and say, look, this is how we're doing things. Either you're going to do it, it's binary. Either you're going to do it or you're not. And if not, that's okay, but this is how we're rolling right now. And so you got to be able to just cut ties when you got to cut ties. And look, I coming from a family business where mortgage was in our blood and was owned by family, and I got to work with family, is that, ultimately you could have a family type relationships with people, and it's different from company to company. But don't be afraid to understand, hey, we're not a family here. This is a partnership of convenience. Doesn't make it bad. I know it doesn't sound good, but it's a partnership. Same with your lender, from a broker to that. It's a partnership of convenience, and you're going to use them as long as it's beneficial for the both of you. And when it stops being that, you're not leaving the family. You're just finding a better situation for yourself. And unfortunately, when people leave from company to company and go from whatever, a lot of times there's a lot of bad blood and, he said, she said, and all that other good stuff. But ultimately, it comes down to this, is the reason why we have to do all of that is because how people react when they leave from one company to another. I've seen it, we've experienced, I'm sure all of you have experienced it too, right or wrong. But ultimately, just understand it's a partnership. And when that partnership ends, it ends. And guess what? When you treat those right, sometimes they boomerang right back, right? We've all had loan officers leave, right? And then come back. Or you've maybe left someplace, went somewhere for a year or whatever, and came back because ultimately that wasn't the partnership you were looking for.
Yep, sometimes the grass isn't always greener. And I think, we've said it in a few different ways. So strategy spans the entire business. It's how your people are, who your people are, what processes they follow, how that impacts your culture. And it's going to be different for everyone, right? So, strategy is a moving object that's adjusting on all those different variables we talked about. So before we wrap up, any final words?
Sorry, Mo. Go ahead. Okay. It says marketing and strategy on the screen there, and we really haven't said much about marketing. So let me just say this, and maybe y'all can help. But strategy, when shown to the public, is marketing.
Yep.
So I really think that just telling your story is the biggest thing right now, and that's what the marketing is. That's what people care about. Whiskey Creek Cattle, Christopher and I are working on this processing and stuff. We're just showing people behind the scenes. It can be ugly, but people want to know what happens to get beef. And so we show the story. When it comes to mortgages, it can get ugly, but we just want to show what happens, right? You tell a story. Here's what happens. When it comes to serving veterans and training, we're just trying to show the story. And we're launching MLO Force, a new CE company this year, and it's just, look, CE doesn't have to be boring. It just helps us all stay compliant what we're doing. Share the story. That's the marketing part, but you have to have a strategy to go in with that. And when you share that, people care. They want to come along. They want to listen. And that also builds the culture, the processes, the people. It's all inclusive. It just becomes a true Lego build. All of a sudden, it's beautiful, even though they're all different parts and it's all different colors. It becomes a really beautiful creation.
I was going to say the same thing. I was going to touch on the fact that the theme for today was marketing and strategy, but they are 100% married to each other because as a producer, being boots on the ground, being in the streets, I can bring them in. I can, rub elbows, kiss babies, shake hands. But if I don't have my process, if I don't have my support, if I don't have operations down to the T, then what? So they are hand in hand. Marketing will mean different things for everybody because marketing for some people is just a did you know, is a GIF, is a reel. It's not the same. But the process behind the scenes has to be the same so that when you market, it marries with your operations. Hands down. Hands down, you have to look at it with both of those eyes.
Yeah, I just, add, obviously, when you mentioned it as far as culture, remember, your culture isn't just for people you want to hire. Right. It's for people that your customers, right? They're going to see that. And I guess everyone would say, well, what I do, it's not exciting. It's not boring. Guys, look, I've hung out with you, late at night, bar, having drinks, hearing the stories. Like, you got some funny shit, right? You got some funny stuff that you guys talk about. And look, I'm just going to tell you this. How many people watch that dude that just mows lawns and, does that, right? And how many people watch the people that are, cleaning the dirty rugs, Right? So, right?
Yeah.
Like, so look, if we're
Carson
going to
was
watch that type of content, like what you're doing, you guys have something that's far more interesting because it's human. It's nature, right? Like that's what people like to see. Reality TV is a thing because people like to see the behind the scenes of what you do. And you don't need to try to make it interesting. It's interesting. Maybe not like running credit is interesting, but the things that you find out, the conversations you have, because there's education in that. Because guys, how many times have you talked to a consumer about something that they just did something and you're like, I can't believe like you get dressed in the morning. Like, how would you think that's possible? And it's because they don't know. And you could educate someone from making mistakes, but they're never going to know. It's all marketing putting that out there. But remember, your culture attracts the consumers too.
Awesome. Oh,
So I'll just add few last thoughts, just to add to everyone what they said. So strategy, marketing go hand in hand. As long as you can identify what your true product or service is, who your audience is, defining that vision and finding a team that can execute on that vision and align with how you want to run the business. That's what matters. And be authentic. I think someone mentioned, be who you are. There is no need to sugarcoat. People are smart, they find out. So being genuine about your service, your product, your experience, that's how you best market and get true value.
awesome. Well said. Well, thank you, everyone. Give it up for our panelists. And we finished just in time. So great job, guys. Thank you.